Good morning, friends. It is Monday, and I have huge hopes and dreams for this week. I have several days that I do not have to leave my house for anything, and that does not happen very often. So I am planning to load up on caffeine and to-do lists and get a whole lot done and take advantage of this gorgeous weather outside, as well as not having to leave my house for anything. My morning usually starts at 5:45 and also usually starts with a load of laundry. So I'm getting some towels going. I wanted to show you my seedlings, how they are coming along. I think it's been close to 2 weeks since I started these seeds. This long tray on the right are sunflowers. This tray right here that is looking awfully sad, we had a seed tray catastrophe yesterday. My youngest daughter was helping me transport them out to the greenhouse, and she accidentally dropped this one. I was able to save about half of the seeds. Thankfully, they were just herbs and flowers, so I'll just restart them if I need to. But all of these are peppers that are germinating nicely. These are other veggies, and then this tray right here on the right is all tomatoes. So everything's coming along well. We had a light frost last night, and that is the final night in the 30s that we have for the next 2 weeks as far as I can see in the forecast. So I am excited to let my plants stay out in the greenhouse for the next 2 weeks, and we'll see what the weather looks like from there. Now I am giving you a reality check. This is what my house looks like this morning. So with it being Monday, I figured this was as good a time as any to do a whole home reset, at least for the downstairs. I don't plan on tackling anything upstairs, but I have lots of laundry to do, lots of cleaning. I'd like to kind of get an idea of what my menu will be like this week, put things away that have ended up in the wrong places in our home, like this basket and pile right here, for example. This has been sitting here for weeks. I'd also like to tackle this corner of my bedroom. My nightstand tends to collect books and all kinds of things. But first, I need to start some simple syrup for my coffee. I am out of my favorite Skinny Girl caramel syrup, which is sugar-free. I usually just put 1 pump in my morning latte, but I've been out for several days, and it's really sad. Like, I need a little something in my latte in order to drink the whole thing, and I need all the espresso I can get this morning. So I just make a simple syrup with equal parts water and sugar. Sometimes I will use like a Trim Healthy Mama sweetener instead, but today I just used organic cane sugar from Costco. Once all the sugar has dissolved, I added a good pinch of salt and a generous splash of homemade vanilla extract, stirred it together and poured it into a jar, and I'll use a tablespoon or two in my morning coffee until I am able to replace my Skinny Girl syrup, which I'm not in a hurry to do since I don't plan on leaving my house. We have the Nespresso Virtuo machine. I can link it in the description below if you are interested. We got a great deal on Black Friday a few years ago, and my favorite pods to purchase are just the, I think it's called Chiaro double espresso. And I actually decided to do 2 of those pods this morning. I sipped on this coffee for probably about an hour. I made an iced latte, which is my favorite year-round. I really like iced coffee. I also learned from my teenage son that if I hold my milk frother down, hold the button down for about 3 seconds, it will do a cold foam froth instead of heating it. So I am getting that second pod going. Then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of my homemade simple syrup that we just made. So this is just a vanilla simple syrup. It is just right for adding sweetness and a little bit of flavor to my coffee. Then I'm adding my cold foam milk, and I'm going to pour it over ice in a quart jar, stick a straw in it, and get to work. By this time, it is a little after 7. My youngest 2 have left for school, and my husband has left for work. First, I vacuumed the bathroom. We have lots of hair and sand and even sand spurs since we live on the farm. And now I am using my Bissell SpinWave Mop, which I will link below. I actually asked for this for Christmas a few years ago. I am painfully practical in my gift requests, and I absolutely love it. At the time, it was right about $100, and I have absolutely gotten my money's worth. I get lots of buildup on my floor. This is just porcelain or ceramic tile, and hairspray and baby powder and all kinds of things from the bathroom, of course mixed with moisture from the shower and the bath, end up leaving a yucky film on the floor. And this mop with a little bit of warm water and cleaner or just vinegar even does the trick and gets my floor perfectly clean every time. I also love that I am able to empty this canister and refill it with whatever cleaner I want to use on the floors. On days like today, I try to focus on tackling one space or one task at a time. It's easy to get overwhelmed when your house gets out of control, or for me, pretty much every Monday morning feels like this. I enjoy spending time with my family and just resting on Sundays and getting outside projects done on Saturdays. So I don't mind so much as long as I don't have a super busy Monday out of the house. I don't mind when things get a little crazy and out of control and I know that I have my work cut out for me for Monday morning. So I pop my earbuds in and listen to a podcast or even listen to a YouTube video as I am productive. I also like listening to audiobooks, but I am finished with my current audiobook. So right now I am listening to Minimal Mom and Healthy Elizabeth, which is one of my new favorite cooking channels. She's just got some really simple whole food recipes. She has 4 young children. Some of them are kind of picky. So I've gotten a lot of inspiration from her, but I do like to listen to something as I am productive, but I only usually have one earbud in so that I can hear my teenagers as they are coming and going and asking me questions. I desperately needed to clean my stovetop before I got anything else going in the kitchen this morning. So that was my next task. I always start with just a soapy sponge. This sponge is actually going in the trash after I clean the stovetop this morning. It is well used and kind of gross and grimy, and I think it's a bit beyond salvaging, putting it in the dishwasher or even the washing machine. So first I get all the chunks and crumbs off, then I scrub the entire top with soap and water. I don't really worry about that last half an inch that is around each of the burners. It's pretty hard, nearly impossible really, unless I were to use a really caustic chemical to get that dark stuff off around the edges. We have a gas stove, as you can see, and it's just, we use the stove multiple times every single day. So this is just what a well-used stove looks like. If you have any tips or tricks on getting those dark edges clean, let me know. But at this point, I am perfectly happy with the finished product, just using what I use now. Now that the stove is clean, I need to feed my sourdough starter. Yes, I am trying again, one more time, probably not the last time, with a sourdough starter. A friend of mine brought me hers. She actually feeds hers with hard red wheat, but I have found that it doesn't matter much what I use to feed it. This is leftover freshly ground kamut flour. I'm also adding some unbleached organic all-purpose flour. I am not discarding any today because I want to double my starter. My plan is, because I've never yet had success with bread, sourdough bread that is, I am going to bulk up my starter and try some sourdough discard recipes. Venison for Dinner has lots of options, as does Farmhouse on Boone or Simple Farmhouse Life. So I'm going to try those once I get this starter fed and active again. I'll let you know how those recipes turn out. I'll probably film some of them. I figure at the very least, if I'm not able to make successful soft sourdough, I can at least make some recipes using the discard, which is still really good for you. Next, I am going to roast some coffee. My teenagers have been without coffee for almost 2 weeks now. They've been drinking a lot of hot tea, so I am finally making this priority today. I cannot tell you how much this coffee means to me. This is organic Yirgacheffe Ethiopian coffee. I purchased these organic beans on Amazon in 5-pound bags for a great price when you break it down per pound. And this coffee takes me back to a week that my husband and I spent in Ethiopia waiting to bring our girls home from the Congo. At the time, the Congo was in a very volatile, dangerous position, which honestly, I don't know that they've ever been out of that position. But we ended up needing to meet our girls with escorts in Ethiopia. We met them at the airport, and what was supposed to be a 48-hour turnaround ended up being an 8-day wait. I had a 6-month-old nursing baby back in the States, and every single morning, my husband and I woke up in our guest house to the smell of freshly roasting coffee. I don't know if you're familiar with Ethiopia and their coffee ceremony, but they roast and grind their coffee fresh every single morning. It kind of smells like burnt popcorn, but as the days went on, it just became such a comforting, endearing smell, and there is nothing like the taste of freshly roasted, freshly ground coffee. It's very smooth. It doesn't taste acidic. And my personal preference is this Yirgacheffe Ethiopian coffee that we buy in bulk on Amazon. I will leave a link for it below. It's so simple to do at home. You just roast it over medium heat, stirring it pretty constantly. Because this was a little over a pound, it took about 30 minutes. And it goes through 2 periods of cracking or popping before it is done. And then I transferred it to this colander to wait for it to cool. Now I am finally getting around to eating some breakfast. I don't remember what time this was, maybe about 9 o'clock. I made 2 sausage links and 2 fried eggs with butter. I am really excited. We decided to go in with a neighbor and split a pig together, and I think that meat should be ready by the end of this week. In a little while, I'm going to show you what my freezers look like after our pantry challenge has been over for a couple of weeks now, and we've really made a lot of progress, especially in our kitchen freezer. When I fry eggs, I like to break the membrane for the whites. It helps the whites cook faster and leave my yolk runny, which is how I prefer it. I believe it's called over easy. I always forget when I'm at a place like Waffle House or Cracker Barrel. I'm like, I like runny yolks. What is that called again? I think it is over easy. Anyways, I need to try and clean out my kitchen freezer. It is so challenging to clean freezers if you aren't able to defrost them, because everything that's left in there, which is pretty grimy and dirty, is really hard to get off because everything's frozen. And if you use a damp sponge or rag, then that just freezes as well. So I will bring you along as I attempt to clean our kitchen freezer in a little while. While my breakfast cools, I'm going to head outside and toss these coffee beans. There's like a light breeze outside, and I am letting the chaff blow away, similar to when you're separating wheat from chaff. I believe the coffee chaff is still referred to as chaff, but they're just little bitty flakes that kind of crack off of the coffee beans. And this time in particular was the first time, I think, ever since roasting my own coffee that I did not spill any beans on the concrete. Now I am showing you the reality of our greenhouse right now. This is what happens over winter. The kids and Josh tend to pile their stuff in there and just use it as a catch-all outside. We've got lots of feed bags that need to be piled up. We will probably use some of those in the garden pathways to help deter the weeds, but I am transferring all of my seedlings out to the greenhouse. As I said earlier, we do not have any more frosts at night in the 2-week forecast, so these are going to stay outside. Except for nights that are still in the 40s, I will bring my tomatoes and peppers in. I don't want them to get stunted. Now that everything has sprouted, I am watering from underneath to encourage those deep roots to start growing downward. While I always hope that my videos are inspiring and encouraging to you, I do want to encourage you not to compare one person's productivity to yourself or to another. I am in a season of life where I still have 6 children at home. A lot of plates must remain spinning in order for our household to keep running the way that it does with this many people. So just give yourself grace. If you are retired, if you are empty nesters, you have likely reached a season of life where you have the flexibility to slow down and go about your day in a more leisurely pace. I look forward to those days. My main point is we do what we have to do in the season that we're in, so I encourage you not to compare. Several months ago, I got some friends to go in with me and we ordered 500 bare root strawberry plants. My husband and my mom and I spent hours over this past weekend getting this bed prepared to get these strawberries in the ground. I ended up with 60 and a bunch of friends bought the other 440, and I am so excited to have strawberries on the homestead this year. I don't have high expectations for the yield this year, but I do look forward to having these perennials in the ground and have years and years of strawberries ahead of us. The rest of this bed will be used to plant corn and possibly some bulb onions. I also wanted to show you the update on my sweet potato slips. They are coming along beautifully. Look at all of those green leaves. They will go in the ground in 1 month. Finally, I am getting around to the laundry room. Mudroom area. This is probably the most used and abused room in our house since the children come in and out of this back door multiple times every single day. And it is also kind of a catch-all, so I end up needing to put things back where they belong. Dirty socks get kicked under that bench. Children end up with multiple pairs of shoes per person in here, and we try to limit it to one. In fact, I really prefer that they just go ahead and keep them in their room. We are not a shoe-free household, although I think that would probably be a really wise decision. I'm just not sure we could go back at this point. As always, it is so much easier to maintain a clean and tidy space when you've taken the time to get it all reset, especially like going into a weekend or at the beginning of a week. I guarantee you this mudroom will look the same on Friday as it does right now because I am determined to keep it that way. Now I'm going to do a little bit of food prep for the week. My little ones pack their lunches for school just about every day. Well, I pack it for them, but they take their lunch. They probably only buy at school once or twice a month. This is some home canned chicken, and don't worry, I am not touching this knife to the bottom of the jar. I am simply pushing it about halfway in just to break up some of those larger chunks and pull them away from the sides of the jar so I can dump it into a container. My kids love homemade chicken salad. All I add to it is diced apple and either pecans or walnuts. Today I'm going to do walnuts because I don't have any pecans. This is a really simple recipe. I wouldn't even really consider it a recipe. I use chicken, mayonnaise, apples, and nuts. I don't typically even add salt and pepper, although you certainly could. If you prefer it sweeter, you could add a little bit of sweetener like honey, sugar, like a Trim Healthy Mama sweetener if you don't want to actually have sugar in it. But we love it just with the added sweetness of the apples and the savory crunch that the nuts bring as well. So I am making chicken salad for them to take in their lunches. They won't even eat this on a sandwich. I will just give them a container with a fork and they will eat it that way. We've really been trying to cut back on processed carbs, crackers, breads, even homemade bread. We're trying to just limit to maybe a couple lunches a week, not several. Here I am chopping up the walnuts. I keep these stored in the freezer in the laundry room. This bag has probably lasted me 6 to 8 months, but I do keep it in the freezer because nuts tend to go rancid if you open them and leave them at room temperature for storage. I picked up these clear plastic containers at Walmart. I don't remember the brand, but I got 2 different sizes and they've really come in handy for storing food in the refrigerator. Of course, I definitely prefer glass, but I don't plan on reheating anything in these nor storing any warm food items, so I feel like it's relatively safe. Next, I am going to make some tuna salad. I like either dill relish or chopped pickles, dill pickles, and even chopped boiled eggs in my tuna salad. My kids prefer just mayonnaise and chopped pickles, so that is what I am going to make. I started off thinking I would only need 2 cans of tuna, but then I realized my teenagers are probably going to want some too, so I decided to add 2 more cans, bringing the total to 4. One thing that I regret, when I buy tuna in bulk, I typically just get the chunk light. Chunk light tends to be much finer and you end up with a lot more water content, and I didn't quite squeeze enough of the water out of these cans, and I end up going back and dumping the whole tuna salad in a strainer and setting it over a bowl in the sink for like an hour so that more of that liquid drains off and it doesn't end up looking like tuna soup in the fridge. Speaking of the fridge, this was the perfect time to go ahead and weed out some things that could be thrown to the chickens. I pulled out some leftovers that need to be used. I got all of my ripe avocados together and made some guacamole that we will probably use tonight with supper. And I also peeled and sliced cucumbers to be eaten as snacks this week. I also made some homemade ranch and stuck that in the fridge as well. Lastly, I am taking a look at my menu for this week. Tomorrow, I will release a video on prepping the food for this week's dinners. I'm going to pull the meatballs out of the freezer and make sub bread. I'm actually swapping meatball subs for chicken enchiladas tonight since I want to use up the guacamole that I just made, but I also need to make some gnocchi and probably prep some pizza dough. So I'm going to be sharing all of that with you tomorrow. This weekend, I will be heading back up to Virginia to see my son in his 13th show of Titanic the Musical. He is a musical theater major at Liberty University. The whole family was able to go up and see him on opening night, and I am really excited to go back and see it one more time before the show closes. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I would encourage you to subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, thanks for watching.